I want to talk about Star Wars. The 9th episode, the final in the trilogy, just came out and I saw it the other day, and it was one of those moments when I was walking towards the cinema thinking, is there any way that they can finish this series, this monster series that goes back to the 70s, in a way that everyone would say, huh, yeah, that's the best way they could have done that? And I'm pretty sure the answer is no. And I think the reason why some people have a big problem with this film, of course everyone's entitled to their opinion, is that, you know, you grew up in different phases. You know, for those who actually grew up and were kids or even adults when the first films came out, episode 4 through 6, they had a certain approach, because then they had the meltdown that was the Phantom Menace, and then it slightly progressed to something that was decent. And then the new films came out a couple of years ago, episode 7 and then 8 and 9. And obviously, a lot of those films are built on nostalgia. You know, there's a lot of nostalgia in that. I mean, as a kid growing up in the 80s, I would play with the Star Wars toys. I had so many of these little guys. I still have some of them at home. So seeing this film and seeing it all kind of come together in this finale, for me personally, I actually enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that it got bigger and the stakes got higher, and there were sort of like red threads all the way back to, well, if you want to do it chronologically, to the Phantom Menace and onward. But I think the one thing I enjoyed the most with this film, beyond anything else, was the music. I know, right? But if you've grown up with the original films, you have certain soundtracks connected to certain people and certain moods and even certain places. I mean, when they walked into the old throne room and the music from the Return of the Jedi starts playing, and it's like, ah. And then when Rey walks into the room next to the throne room, that is that's a play on, that's a flashback to the cave where Yoda used to stay. You know, what will I find in there? Only what you bring with you. So there's a lot of references that I think a lot of people actually missed because they didn't grow up with the films. But for me personally, I really enjoyed it, and I think one of those, there was a lot of moments where I almost like, whoo. Of course it's nostalgia, of course it is, but seeing and hearing, you know, Lando Calrissian was just like, oh, and I'm shivering just saying it, because that film, Empire Strikes Back, which is still my absolute favorite out of all 9, that film just had so many amazing parts. And the thing I love about Star Wars, and which is also the main thing I think that they screwed up when it came to episodes 1 and 2 and partially 3, is that it became so much slapstick humor. Like, it had to be something funny constantly. It had to be Avengers. And the thing I always enjoyed about Star Wars is the depth and the seriousness, you know, about the Force and the feelings and growing up. Because the thing is, as you grow up, your life and the values that you attain come from all parts of life. It comes from your parents or whoever raised you, but it also comes from popular culture. And if there's one thing that I picked up, and I still live by this, it came from Star Wars, and that was the fact that even within the most evil person, there is good. As Luke said, there is good in him, even when the wisest of people told him no. So I learned a lot about the values I have today, well, a lot, but some of them from films like Star Wars. But again, the music, and I know that a lot of things within this saga is repetitive. It kind of comes back, you know. Episode 7 was, you know, it was so much of that had already happened in previous films. It was kind of like a modern version of that. But I think one of the things they really succeeded with in this last film, Rise of Skywalker, is the seriousness and the depth and the pain, because I think that's where the realness comes from. And yes, people have issues with, so suddenly the Force can do this, and suddenly the Force can do that. And I'm pretty sure that there are bigger nerds than me out there who can explain certain things concerning the dyad and stuff like that. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It'll be interesting to see what I think when I see it again, when the feeling of the new and the almost like, I don't know, larger than life feeling of this is the end comes to an end. There's always something with, you know, series finales, a sense of nostalgia that heightens and levels up and makes you think better of things just because there is something built into that. But that was my take on seeing this film, and in a way it almost felt like I had this feeling walking out of the cinema. It's almost like it's over. That was my childhood that came to a close at the age of 40. Yeah. I still miss the fact that Ben from Felicity is not in the film. You know what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's fine. But you know what I'm talking about. What did you think? Rise of Skywalker. Is this a series of films that you have followed, or is this something completely new to you? Oh, I wanted to add one more thing. I think that these films actually came at the right moment when you're actually able to make people, you know, younger on film, much like The Irishman. And I still think that the prequels, episode 1, 2, and 3, came 2 or 3 years too early. Just because, I mean, episode 1, it looks tacky. The technology to do what they wanted to do was just not there yet. They just should have waited. But what's your thought about Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars? Let me know, and yeah, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas in Sweden today. Merry Christmas and good talk.